Hey, Kyle here with winthehouseyoulove.com. Today we're talking about the age-old question, buying versus renting. I'm going to show you three important numbers here at the second half of this video, but first I want to talk about the mindset of buying versus renting. First of all, you shouldn't even be considering buying a home unless you're actually ready to buy. Now, what does it mean to be ready to buy? The first thing that I would want you to have is making sure that you don't have any high interest debt. So if you have a credit card debt, you want to try to get that paid off before you purchase a home. And the reason why is because, as Dave Ramsey says, if you like Dave Ramsey, some people don't, that's okay. But if you purchase a home and you're not in a good financial position, buying a home is not going to be a blessing to you. It's going to be a curse. It's going to make existing financial problems worse when you purchase a home. So try to get rid of the discretionary debt that you have. So take off those high interest credit card, personal loans, maybe car loans. Then you need to make sure that you have an emergency buffer set up. So a couple months of expenses saved up in case of an emergency. Because when you go from renting to buying, you now take on the ownership of not only the home, but the problems that come with it. So if your water heater decides to go out, or you need to replace a fridge, or you need to paint or add furniture, then that comes out of your pocket. Well, furniture, I guess, comes out of your pocket for renting anyway. It's a bad example there, but you have to take on all these other monetary costs. So if you're not financially ready, don't consider purchasing a home. And a quick side note, just on the emotional impact of this is you're probably seeing maybe people in your age range who are purchasing homes, and it can feel like if you're still renting or if you're not in a place where you think you need to be, it can feel like you're being left behind and you get this fear of missing out. And just know that it's okay to feel that, and people are always on different timelines than we are. The best thing that we can do is not compare ourselves to other people, but see what can we do to understand where we're at, create a plan for where we want to go, and be happy with that journey along the way. Also, a quick side note is you want to be very careful of the people who are going to try to sell you into buying using all these like adages. Is that even a word? Adages? Using all these like old sayings. Like people say, when you're renting, you're throwing money away, or when you're renting, you're just paying your landlord's mortgage. And while some of that may be based in truth, it's not always entirely true when we're looking at the long-term impact of purchasing a home. And what you have to be really careful of is understanding the motive behind the person who's telling you to purchase. So for instance, you might be talking with a realtor and they're pressuring you to buy a home because they're saying buying a home creates wealth and all this stuff. Renting is throwing away money. Same thing with a mortgage lender. I'm a mortgage broker, so I make money when people purchase and refinance homes. So it would be advantageous for me to tell you, you need to buy, but honestly, it might be good for you to rent. Again, you want to make sure you're in a good financial position first, then explore purchasing a home. There's no point in trying to purchase if your finances aren't where they need to be right now. So just be careful of the motives of people, and also understand that your family members probably don't have great financial advice. So when it comes to Thanksgiving and people are around the table saying, hey, why don't you purchase a home? It's going to help you build wealth and all that stuff. If you're not ready to purchase, don't worry about it. So a quick summary of what we're going to cover in the second half of this video, it's coming up here soon, is if you are looking at housing in the short term, so the next, let's say 3 to 5 years, then renting might be something that you consider really strongly, especially if you're closer to that 2 to 3 year mark. If you anticipate moving around 2 to 3 years, renting is going to be your better option. Purchasing is almost always better long term. So 3+ years, purchasing is going to be a great suggestion for you. Okay, so renting short term, purchasing long term. And the reason why is because when you purchase and when you sell a home, you have costs involved in there, and you want to make sure you don't, if you're going to keep moving around, you don't have to pay the cost to buy and then the cost to sell and the cost to buy and the cost to sell over and over again, where renting doesn't have any of those acquisition or sales costs. So let's go ahead and dive into the three numbers you need to consider when you are considering buying versus renting. All right, so here is our handy dandy buy versus rent comparison. Now, this is a tool that we use internally in our company, and it's not available publicly, unfortunately, because it's super powerful, but I can walk you through and show you these numbers that you need to consider. So first, what I'm going to do is enter in the zip code that we are in. So I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and then let's run a scenario for a $250,000 purchase price. And we're just going to make up some numbers in here, and the whole goal really is to just get a picture of what's going on with all these numbers. So first, let's kind of set up our renting scenario. So what we're comparing is trying to find like a comparable $250,000 home versus renting. So maybe we're not paying $2,178. Now this is comparable rent in Montgomery County, Ohio. Let's say it's a little less. Let's say we're paying $1,500. All right, we have renter's insurance, and then we can see the average rent increase in Montgomery County. That's being factored in here as well, something that we need to consider. Okay, so we have that set up. Next, we're going to compare, a potential property. So we have the purchase price along with the effective tax rate. We have homeowner's insurance. This is probably going to be a little bit higher. I'm going to say 100. We have property tax increase estimate, repairs cost added in here, and a cost to sell. What people don't realize all the time is that if you're selling, you do have costs that you have to pay. Normally it's 6% to cover the realtor's commission, and possibly more if you're looking at paying the buyer's closing costs. So we'll put in 6 here. Now we're going to set up the loan that we would potentially have on this new property. So we could say maybe we're putting 5% down on a 30-year conventional loan at 3.5%. And this all looks pretty standard. So basically what we're saying is, hey, we want to compare renting $1,500 per month versus purchasing a $250,000 house with 5% down. Okay, now we can look here. Let's say we want to look at a span of 10 years. Appreciation, I'm going to pick it for our area. And we can see historical appreciation versus forecasted. Let's stick with historical since it's lower. It's going to give us a safer bet here. All right, so now let's first talk about the cash flow difference. This is number one that you need to look at. Cash flow is the direct comparison, rent cost versus your monthly home ownership cost. And this is where people usually stop. They only look at this one number and see the difference there. But we can see in our example here, renting is cheaper, right? We said we were only paying $1,500 a month in rent, and here's our rental insurance. So we're only paying $1,533 per year in rent. Buying, we said, well, we're actually paying closer to $1,858. All right, and this scenario might be a little bit different depending on where you're at. So what we can see here is this difference between the two, and over a period of time, we can see the mortgage payment that we pay each month on the home is constant, but rent continues to increase over a period of 10 years. So we can see that over 10 years, we actually lost $13,000, almost $14,000 just in cash flow. But if we're only looking at the cash flow, if we're only looking at the monthly difference between homeownership costs and renting, then we don't get the full picture of buying versus renting. The next number we have to look at is appreciation gain. So appreciation is when the value of your home increases. So we're going to go off of historical averages. The market is going to more kind of trend like this, going up and down, but over a long period of time, we can see it normally trends upward in a period of about 2.78%. So starting home value at $250,000 in 10 years, that would put us at about $328,951. Now included in there, you have to consider there's inflation that goes into that as well. So, $300,000 now might not be as powerful, might not be as powerful in the future. So that's something to consider. But appreciation gain would give us almost $79,000 worth of gain over renting. So that's number two. We have the cash flow, which we actually lost money on. Then we have appreciation, which we gained a considerable amount on. And then we have amortization. Amortization is a big thing that people forget, because if we're just looking at cash flow, all we're looking at is the difference between the mortgage and the rent. But amortization gain shows us that actually when we pay on our mortgage, some of that goes towards interest and some of it goes towards principal. And the principal is the equity that you now have in the property. When you go to sell it, that's the money that you now have access to, that you get as a check when you sell your home. So over 10 years, we would have paid almost $54,000 into the equity of our home here. So now if we also factor in the cost to sell, real estate commission, we're going to say 6%. So that's the $19,700 on this new price up here. Okay. So we can see based on 328,951 future value after 10 years. So now let's look at the net gain buying a home. We can see the net gain over 10 years is $93,849. And this is a net worth gain. All right, so this isn't necessarily money in your pocket gain, this is net worth. So you're almost increasing your net worth by $100,000 over 10 years by purchasing in this scenario compared to renting. So let's take a look first at what's going in here. We're considering how much should we pay in closing costs? What's our appreciation gain? What's our cash flow difference, which we lost money? Our amortization gain? And then our cost to sell. So if we sold the home year 10, this is our net gain by purchasing this house. Something interesting is we can take a look at year one. Year one gives us quite a bit of a negative. We're looking at a loss of $12,800. We're operating at a loss. So if you purchase a home, only lived in it 1 year, you're not going to do too well. You lost $12,800. Same thing, year two, you're paying those upfront costs and you lost money in year two. But year three is where things start to turn around. Now we have a positive gain of $4,000. And obviously this continues to grow the longer and longer it goes. So really it comes down to what's your time frame look like? I think you can boil down this decision into two things. You can look at math and numbers all day long. But the first thing you need to consider is, are you financially ready to purchase a home? Have you taken down most of your discretionary debt? Do you have a savings set up? Do you understand how your budget is working? Do you know where your money is going? If yes, great. Then let's look at your time frame. If you're planning on being in the home for only 3 years, maybe renting might be the better solution. If you're looking at being in the home for longer than 3 years, then purchasing might be a better solution. So one of the best ways to figure out, are you able to purchase a home based on your budget right now, is through a strategy called zero-based budgeting. I have a video right over here that's going to help you understand the ins and outs of zero-based budgeting and figure out if this is a good strategy for you so you can purchase a home.